this information in a hopefully well-organized resource guide format. And the other thing that I wanted to do is just go through the actual agenda. So I did send some information to Mayor Olson, specifically an article from the Center for, remind me the name, Carl New, and he is with the Center. Yes, Center for the Future of Local Governance. Yeah, actually from Lakewood. And several years ago, he did a 10 Habits of Highly Effective City Councils. And so I sent that to her, and she is going to be presenting that information, as well as just what the charter says about what the roles of City Council are. Myself, the city attorney, the city clerk, will be talking about what the charter says with regard to our roles and how we're here to serve you. Then we'll also, actually immediately after that, we're going to have Dorothy talk about the role of directors. And then we are going to just make sure that we cover some of the most important and high-level legal issues that oftentimes trip councils up. So whether that's CORA or the Open Meetings Act, things like that, that we really want to make sure that we're always covered on. Those are going to be covered by both the city attorney and the city clerk. Then we'll have just kind of an overview of the way the role of residents in council activities and governance, because obviously that's, you all are residents, and many of us are, and so we want to make sure we understand those roles. We're going to quickly go over some City of Inglewood basics. For instance, we'll just go over high-level structure of the organization to give you an idea of how the departments are structured, what the city facilities we have and our assets, which will be covered by Maria DeAndre. At that point, we're going to, and then we'll go right into the budget and finance department overview, because as you know, the budget is one of the most important things that council does every year, and so we want to give you a good overview of that. After that, we will take a break and then move on to some how-to guides. Those are going to include all the 5 items that you see there, and we'll try to move through those pretty quickly because we are going to be giving you written information on all of those as well. And then we'll end with 4 out of the several departments that we're going to be going through over the next few weeks. We didn't want to overload you with the departmental overviews on the first night, so for the next few nights, next few meetings, for your study sessions, we're going to go over about 3 to 4 departments at each one of those. So tonight we have communications, police, community development, and the city clerk. So with that, maybe we can go around and introduce ourselves, and also we don't have to call roll for this meeting, but certainly if you can introduce yourself as council members or council members elect. Hey, Sam, are the mics on? Oh.
Okay. I am Othaniel Sierra, City Council Member in District 1.
Joe Anderson, Council Member-elect, District 3.
Good evening, Dave Cuesta, District 4.
Linda Olson, District 2 and Mayor.
John Stone, Council Member-elect at large.
Rita Russell, Council Member at large and currently Mayor Pro Tem.
Lorette Valentine, District 3.
Cheryl Wink, at large.
And Margaret Brocklander sitting here helping us, but not on, with IT and all things technical. So I was going to sit back there and do this, but I realized I have a little tiny cut on my cornea, and I can't see very well, so I couldn't see from there. So I'm moving up here. So this article, The 10 Habits of Highly Effective Governing Bodies, it's a great article, and I asked Manager Lewis if he would send it out to us all today so that everyone had a copy. I don't know if you saw that email or not, but because I thought, wow, this really was good. He just asked me to summarize it, and he put most of this together and then asked if I would do it. So kudos to him for most of this. So the roles of the, ooh, I must have pushed too hard. No, you changed it. Oh gosh, this is nice. From what I saw earlier, you put some background on it. Okay, so these are the major defined roles that come straight out of our charter verbatim. So legislative, in terms of the legislative piece, the affairs of the city shall be vested in a council consisting of 7 council members, 1 to be elected from each of the 4 districts, and the remaining 3 to be at large. So that's what we have here represented. And then the powers generally, council really is about, shall have municipal legislative powers as conferred by the general law. That's the state, the county, the nation, all of those apply, but particularly the state, except as provided by the charter, and except those which may be exercised by the people through direct legislation. And then the council shall have the power and the authority within constitutional limitations to delegate by ordinance to boards and commissions such functions, power, and authority herein conferred upon the city as council shall deem proper and advisable within its discretion. And we will continue to have conversations we've had in the past about boards and commissions and what their role is. And I think as a new council, we'll want to continue to revisit that to understand what our roles are, what their roles are, and the kind of power that we are able to confer. And then powers expressly withheld from council is that we shall deal with the administrative service solely and directly through the city manager. And then neither the council, its member, nor committee shall either dictate the appointment or direct or interfere with the work of any officer or employee under the city manager, either publicly or privately. And I think these two are really important, and we will have to talk through further and probably in our workshop again later. And then in January, February, I think Manager Lewis wants to have all of council do a retreat together or a workshop together to play this out a bit further about how do we interact with our staff. It doesn't mean that you can't ask them questions and can't talk to them, but it does mean that we don't tell them what to do. We go through the city manager in order to do that and make sure that we're a coordinated effort. An attempted dictation, direction, or interference on the part of any member of council shall be deemed misconduct. Now, how misconduct then gets played out, or what do we do about that, we have never really figured that out, but we can talk with every new council about what that would look like. We always have an annual independent audit. An independent audit is made annually of all city accounts, and more frequent audits may be made if deemed necessary. Such audits shall be made by certified public accountants experienced in municipal accounting and selected by council. We just recently did one of those with EAF, if you've been following that. So that was something that was not the annual piece. So the different areas, categories of council action include our vision and goal setting. We will have a council retreat as we suggested, or that I suggested earlier. We've done this almost every 2 years at least, and sometimes every year since I've been on council. It's a great time for us to be together thinking and coordinating some of our ideas about goal setting and the way we want to have our study sessions work for us. Exploration of interest and or topics of interest and analysis of issues. Our study sessions are primarily for that. I think you've watched those. We can take tours, which we're doing on Friday, so glad that most of you are able to come. And then there are executive sessions where we deal with personnel matters, legal issues, litigation, the kinds of things that do need to be a little bit more confidential for the best interests of the city. And then legislation and budget, another area. It's a big area that we're involved in, of setting the priorities and providing direction to our staff and allowing for some kind of adoption of budgets that fits within the vision and the goals that we have as a city. Our regular city council meetings is where we actually take our legislative moves in action, and then public hearings help us get informed so that those actions become a better representation of the city. We also are really, I think, involved in community relations in a number of different ways. Some of the council have regular town hall meetings, sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly, sometimes quarterly, or neighborhood meetings around issues, which some of us do a little bit more than that than the town hall. There are some regional agencies that we have representation on and that we report to or have reports from. Dr. Cog is one of those, South Platte Water Renewal Plant, or Partners, sorry. CML, Colorado Municipal League, RTD, Arapahoe County, Tri-Cities. Those are sort of the major ones that we have relationship with. And then we have emails and newsletter and website access for all of the council members to communicate with constituents. And there are rules around that and how to use that best legally, and I'm sure that our city attorney will help us understand that. But that is a really big way to understand and to get information back from our constituency. Performance management, we also are the ones who evaluate the city manager and the city attorney, and that happens annually. We just set new new proposed dates around that, and we asking the city manager to report on the success or failure of the departments is the manager's role, not ours, but getting reports and finding out how things are going is a critical part of our council actions and information. Now, these are the 10 habits of successful councils, and we can all talk about these maybe at the retreat, but it's good for you to get exposed to some of them, read the article, and think about, well, how do we want to flesh some of these out together as we move forward. So citizens' input is incredibly important. Getting an accurate assessment of what citizens think is important for the future of all of our decision making. That comes through the different forms I just mentioned on the last slide, but also through very specific forums we might have, special interest groups we might put together, and through our boards and commissions. And then we take that to develop the vision, which can come from our own personal interests as well as the constituents that we represent and our city staff and our experts that have been hired throughout the city, and evolve these then into strategic issues that are addressed by us all. And hopefully this will then give us some long-range goals, some short range as well, but hopefully and importantly aligned with our budget so that we're not setting goals for things that we can't afford or seem out of the question or not clearly what we all are wanting and thinking is best for the city. The second one that the article suggests is that there should be a respect and share of shared constituency. And this is understanding that all people need to be heard, and that what do the people need is a question that we ask not just for those we hear from all the time, but those we sometimes don't hear from and need to go out and really seek it out. So this horizontal nature of our government includes our constituents, other governments, community entities that might be active, including businesses, and then there's this governance that goes vertically that he suggests is important for us to be aware of, federal and state. That's why we have Colorado Municipal League. National League of City is another one. Our state representatives and our federal representatives can help us with this as well. The third habit that he suggests is to understand and demonstrate the elements of team and teamwork. And I found this particularly interesting because he used some research that I'm very familiar with someone who actually lives in the area as well, so I wonder if they're good friends. But the idea that teams have a clear and elevating purpose, that we have defined roles and we understand what they are and the relationships that pull us together and help us tie together, but also have some commitment to diversity within our thinking. The idea that we all have some basic technical skills and interpersonal and rational ways of thinking that are important for all of us to hear as part of the team. That we have a commitment to team success and quality performance, which means that we probably ought to be thinking more about when have we been successful and reflect on that a little bit more. So I personally, as a council member, would like to see us do a little bit more reflective work after we do something, whether it has gone really well or not, to think, how could we have done that better? And what did we do well? That there are clear standards of excellence and success with some resource recognition and support that's needed to be successful. And then finally, principled and disciplined leadership. The fourth one is having clearly defined roles and relationships, and he suggests that those are in 3 different forms of function, performance, and relationships. So the function being our specific roles and responsibilities, the performance on how a council member actually acts in the fulfilling of the responsibilities that we understand and share, and then the way that we communicate with one another and how trust is built both within the team as well as with those in the community. Honoring the board staff partnership, this one can get tricky, but is a really important one. Council makes policy and staff implements, but there's some but there, and this is what I think he's suggesting in his paper that is so important, that policy making really is and implementation are not entirely separate functions, and that council and staff are our partners in this, that we work with them on this, and that we have an ensured community process that allows for more input and making sure it's successful. And the staff should be able to help guide the policy. They don't dictate it, but they are experts in some areas that we can listen to and evaluate and make decisions around. And then council staff partnership is best when it's vision driven. So having a clear vision of what we want to do in the future and be on the same page with that and maybe revisiting a bit more from time to time than maybe we have in the past is important. I'm gonna keep moving through this. Allocating, oh, I think I have we had left one of these off, so I'm gonna switch copies here for a minute, but allocating our time and energy. You're all giving of your time and energy, and some weeks it's gonna be a lot more than others, and so having a respect for that with everyone and trying to make sure people are heard, but also that we have time that is protected and not necessarily frittered away with endless conversations that aren't getting us anywhere. So council rules are there to help us with that. Having the rules and procedures are really important, but they also can make it difficult to have really good conversations, so we probably should talk as a council after everyone's come on board about how we want to use study session, if we want to do anything differently. I think it's good for every council to revisit that every time. That was, yeah, sorry, and then conduct systematic and valid assessments of policy. This is where our staff are so helpful. Council mistake in policy decision making can be to program implementation. We sometimes can get micromanaging if we're not careful. We need to see feedback through different kinds of groups again, but really conducting good assessment and understanding before we go forward rather than deciding things just on a few voices or a small voice without a strong sense. And I think a good example of that right now is the trash hauling. Been a lot of meetings around that, lots of gathered information. It's a good process to keep up. And then finally, yeah, I'm on the next, whoops, that's not it either. The 10th one, okay, that's right. You took the one out, you did, okay. Practice continuous personal learning and development as a leader. So council members read and attend and workshops and try to gather more information. There are a number of opportunities for us as council members to go to the Colorado Municipal League training. There are webinars that they have. The National League of City has conferences. There's a lot of reading you can do. You can endlessly read around things, but seeking information and being curious is really a hallmark, as he suggests in his paper, of a really very healthy kind of council. So hopefully we can all share information when we find it and pass it along through the city manager to make sure all of us are informed at different levels around different things. So you took the group one out. That was it, right? Okay, great. All right, thank you. And I don't know if you want to ask.
Yeah, it's up to you guys in terms of we can have kind of break for questions on anything that the mayor presented before we move on to some of the other roles. Questions, comments? I do want to thank the mayor for being a trooper. I said I would get this to her on Saturday, and it was late Sunday night before I got it to her. And so appreciate her help on that. Obviously, she's a consummate professional. I also said, I'll just put this out, and it can look like you made it up. And she insisted that I, cite the source. So I was trying to make you look even smarter than you already are, Mayor. So I'm going to briefly talk about the role of the city manager, particularly what the charter says about that, because again, the charter is basically our constitution, and we want to make sure that we're following that. But I wanted to start with a little bit of background about the council manager form of government, because a lot of people don't know this, and while it may sound self-serving, I think it's really interesting. It actually came out of kind of the late 1800s, early 1900s, when there was this really important effort to reform government. You had Tammany Hall in the 1800s, a lot of corruption, the Chicago mob bosses, New York, etc. And there was really this movement to try to reform government. And so there were really kind of three movements that kind of collided to create this whole new form of government in local politics called the council manager form of government. One was the progressive movement, again, to address corruption and cronyism, because again, you had lots of elected officials putting their friends into positions. You had them, giving their friends contracts and things like that. The scientific movement was a movement that was really based on trying to make decisions based on data, based on science, to really be more technical in how we approach government decisions rather than purely political. And then third was a corporate movement to really make government a little bit structured a little bit more like government. So if you think of us as a corporation, with you all being the board of directors, you appoint a CEO, a city manager, and so it really kind of models closely with that form or that structure as well. So that didn't come onto the scene in Inglewood until 1952. Of course, we had a long history already before then, but when really the city was exploding with growth and development was when they changed the charter and adopted the council manager form of government. So these are specifically directly out of your charter document. And so as you can see, I have responsibility for oversight of enforcement of laws, appointing and suspending, transferring employees, preparing the city budget. Thank goodness we have Maria to do the heavy lifting on that. Preparing a year-end report and other reports as requested by council. The mayor mentioned that that's one of the habits, is making sure that you're asking the staff to prepare reports as needed. Keeping the council advised of the financial condition of the city, which is one reason why we always do the quarterly reports to you on how we're doing financially. Supervising departments, enforcing terms, conditions for public utility franchises, and reporting violations to council. So this would be like Comcast, some of the other utilities that crisscross the city, and we charge franchise fees for those, making sure that those are done right. Generally, advising council. Informing the public about plans and activities of council and departments. As I was looking at these for the first time, thought, well, that one's really interesting. It really underscores the need that we have for a communications department. Certainly that's not spoken to, but we as a city, the founding fathers and mothers really wanted us to think about, how do we keep the public informed. Next, establish an accounting system and ensure legal financial provisions are in place. Be responsible for engineering, architectural, maintenance, construction, and work equipment services required by the city. So pretty broad, all the different things that we do in that area. Number 12 is what's going to hurt me during my evaluation, I'm afraid. Because as you can see, I'm supposed to provide airport facilities and provide for air transportation. So obviously, the founders anticipated that we would have an airport. This is probably something when we look at a charter review committee in the next few years or so, we probably should take that one out because I don't think we'll ever have the land for an airport, potentially. Does anybody know the history behind this? We should have, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, she actually has told me a little bit of that, but I didn't realize it was Inglewood. Cool.
It was all unannexed, all the unannexed, unincorporated land was
Yeah.
Inglewood, and so there was, I think.
Yeah, very cool. So last but not least, perform other such duties as may be prescribed by this charter or required by the council and not inconsistent with the charter. So a very broad kind of closing statement that they put in for us. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dorothy to talk a little bit about the role of department directors.
Thank you and good evening. There we go. I thought I'd start by saying why we have department directors, what they do, how they do it, but I'm not going to talk about who they are at this point because you'll have a chance to meet them all during the departmental presentations later in this presentation and then the study sessions to come. All of the department directors are appointed, hired by the city manager per charter, so he has a responsibility for quite a team of people. We are here as department directors to develop the department objectives in support of the citywide goals. You can see how the goals trickle down. How are we going to execute those? How are we going to implement those? How are we going to provide direction to staff? Make sure that we get clear and consistent information to the staff so that we're all rowing in the same direction. The department directors establish measurable standards so that we know whether we're making progress toward those objectives. And we're there to help ensure service excellence in those areas of expertise for each and every department. So what does that look like? Well, we all serve as department directors as members of the executive team. We help execute those visions. We participate in regular meetings, talk about policies and procedures, help to make decisions on behalf of the city. There are many cross-departmental projects Some of the upcoming ones would be like a utility billing system, working with utilities, working with finance, working with IT. How do we work well together? We spend a lot of time as a team coming up with unified approaches, which helps every department and the city run more efficiently. We develop detailed program implementation, project plans, set timelines, figure out what we need in terms of resources, both staff and equipment and money to get things set. And we spend a lot of time trying to figure out, are we making progress to their goals, are our timelines set? And we evaluate and constantly try to share information and progress reports with staff, with city council, with the city manager, and most importantly, with the community. Department directors also spend a lot of time on budgets, doesn't everyone? We make budget recommendations based on the programs that we're supporting. According to the city's procurement policy, a department director can approve budgeted purchases up to $10,000. They monitor revenues and expenses and make adjustments during the middle of the year if possible. The buck stops with the department director to manage those budgets that are approved by council. And we also work closely on capital planning, putting together those plans and working together to make sure that we're taking care of our infrastructure and our capital needs. Our biggest asset in the city are our people. Sounds like King Soopers, doesn't it? But it really is true. And the department director is in charge of making sure that the people in his or her department are successful. They hire, they train, they decide how many positions we need to get the work done that is set by those objectives. We establish performance standards and hold everyone accountable. We celebrate success when people are doing really well and provide some correction if we need to refocus our efforts. And they ensure consistent, equitable, and positive application of all personnel policies and rules. Needless to say, there are many legal issues involved in managing human resources, and we make every effort to be consistent and fair in the application of those policies, both for the benefit of our employees and the city as a whole. And last but not least, directors spend a lot of time in the community, as much as their time may allow. Our what I consider the support functions, IT and finance, and to a certain extent human resources, will spend less. The Parks and Rec director should be out at the Malley Senior Center volunteer lunch. Most of our other departments, facing departments, have worked closely with the boards and commissions appointed by council and are the staff support for those boards and commissions. We spend a lot of time answering questions, providing information at study sessions, responding to citizen requests, both formal and informal, in order to really hear how well our service delivery is working. Gathering that information in a variety of sources is an important role for the department directors. And we work closely with our wonderful communications department to proactively provide information, gather community information and feedback through surveys, and increase awareness of our services. We want everyone to know about the wonderful services that we provide, how they can ask questions and interact with their government in a successful manner. So how do department directors do all of this? Well, basically, we walk on water, okay? And consistently demonstrate the city's values of integrity, trust, respect, excellence, accountability, and teamwork. We create a positive, collaborative work environment for staff at all levels in our department and throughout the city. And the department directors are professionals in their field of expertise, and they are anxious to keep up that expertise, learn about best practices, attend professional association meetings, and take advantage of learning opportunities in any way that they can. And last but not least, they succeed when we practice. I keep saying we and they. I should figure out my pronouns. But department directors practice open, honest, positive, and two-way communications with colleagues, with councils, and with our community. Any questions on our department directors? Well, you can look forward to hearing more from each one of them as the information proceeds. Now I'll turn it over to our city attorney, Allison McKinney-Brown.
I have handouts. Yeah. In there. So just to let you know, these handouts are a lot of paper. If you happen to need another copy of these because they're CML's copyright, let us know and we'll find you an electronic version because this is about a forest of trees. But these are the documents that you're all going to want over the next couple of years because they'll cover, it includes a copy of our charter and a copy of CML's latest publications on ethics. There's a copy of Bob's rules in here, open meetings, open records. Thank you. The new handbook for boards and commissions and committees, which is a work in progress, and I expect you guys are going to be looking at and updating annually for a while. There is an overview of what TABOR is, and I think TABOR is something that takes a while to wrap your head around, so we included CML's latest publication on that. And there's some information about our local ethics at the very back, but we'll be going over that at a future study session later this month. So just to let you know, this is a handy guide for you each just to have, and it's really heavy, so I don't think you're going to want to drag that from meeting to meeting. Still, so there's that, and so I just have the one page, and what we did is just pulled out the things out of the charter that describes what our official duties are generally supposed to be. And my job as the city attorney is to represent all the entities of the city, that is by charter. So the city council, all the staff, boards and commissions, any entities the city creates by charter, they're all supposed to be represented by the city attorney. That in and of itself is a lot, but it's attending all the meetings of the city council and advising the city council and city officials in matters relating to lawfully fulfilling official powers and duties. And that's pretty important because there's always somebody who wants to give you alternate legal advice. But the thing that I keep reminding folks is, if you get your legal advice from your city attorney, you are protected under tort law. You have CIRSA will back up a decision you make. If you get your legal advice from somebody else, CIRSA probably will not support that decision making. So when you hire a city attorney, that has to be somebody that you're willing to listen to. The city attorney or a special counsel hired by the city attorney represents the city in all legal proceedings. We have a prosecutor who works down in the prosecutor's office. She is a member of my legal team. I don't direct her, and I think, again, that comes back to some conversations we'll have about ethics. So she handles the municipal court cases, and I advise you on the civil aspects of some of the same things. So in order that the two don't cross, she does her thing, and I do mine. We also in the office draft all legal documents associated with the city, and those are just some of those that we do. One of the big projects that was brought to the city when I was hired was we need to update sections of the city code. That is an incredibly slow process, but you will be seeing quite a bit of that over the next couple of years. So that's conversations we'll be having about where your priorities are for those updates and where the legislative actions have pushed us to hurry up with those updates. So that's the city attorney's office in a nutshell.
I'm Stephanie Carlisle. I'm the city clerk. I've had the pleasure to get to know the council member elects along through the election process. I'll just really quickly just describe kind of as charter sort of mandates what I do. And I have a fun fact for you. The city clerk is specifically mentioned in the charter 23 times. So I'm pretty proud of that. But generally speaking, I can tell you that, I mean, it says that the city clerk receives petitions and other documents in the name of the council. We keep a journal of the council proceedings, authenticate and record all ordinances and resolutions, and perform such other duties as required by this charter or by the city manager. So the city manager appoints the city clerk. And to name some of those other duties, I can just tell you that we are the designated election official for the city. We are the keeper of the city seal. We are in charge of all the legal publications. We're a voting member of the election commission. We sign, authenticate, number, and record adopted ordinances. And we are the ones in charge of codification. So as you pass new ordinances, we are the ones that go through the formal process of changing the code. So just to kind of mention a few things of what the city clerk does that are charter mandated. So there's a part that we're going to do together because there's a lot of crossover between city attorney and city clerk.
It's fun to tag team because as Sean was talking about the city manager form of government, when it was created so that the city manager, the city clerk, and the city attorney were a team and worked on most of the things that came in front of a city as a team. And you can see the way the charter is written, the charter carries that forward. So when we work on a project, there's a little piece of it that seems to fall to each one of the three of us, and we work very closely together, which you'll see from this. So Bob's Rules of Order, and we're actually going to start with this final line. Bob's Rules of Order are the rules of procedure for the city council, which were adopted by ordinance, which means that they are the law of the city until another ordinance is adopted to change that. It's not terribly difficult, but you as a city council have to follow your rules of procedure until you actively change those by passing an ordinance. So that's the first thing. The second thing is charter mandates that you have rules of procedure, and that's Charter Section 27. So why don't you talk about the rest of it?
All right, so the reason that Bob's Rules of Order is there is certainly to help keep you on track for the meeting. So it gives the meeting structure. It increases efficiency so we can have shorter meetings and more tasks are achieved. When there's order to the meeting, it's easier for the city clerk to be able to record that meeting correctly, and it improves the record keeping. So it standardizes the meeting minutes for the ease of the public, staff, and elected officials. Certainly when you're 10 years from now and you're wanting to look back and kind of see what happened in a meeting or why decisions were made, those rules of order is what helps keep us moving forward and then to record things correctly. And again, it helps everyone have a voice. So it ensures that everybody has the opportunity to speak, that meetings are not dominated by one person. It limits the amount of opportunities that one person can speak on a topic. Members are more on point and thorough. And then it quickens the ability for you all to arrive at a decision. So.
We will have examples of parliamentary procedure, or you actually have that in this big notebook that I've given you. It's got Bob's Rules, and these are some examples that come right out of the Bob's Rules, so you can look at those at leisure. Open Records Act. Open Records Act. So the Open Records Act is a state law that we cannot charter out from underneath, that we have to follow, and it dictates how the city deals with documents and what exactly are documents. There's often confusion about what Open Records Act requires, and there may be sometimes where people make requests for documents that don't exist or were never created. And the Open Records Act doesn't require that documents be created. It merely requires that documents that have been created and that are statutorily defined as a document be made available. So most documents that are maintained in the regular course of business are public records, but there are several exceptions. And primary one of those is attorney-client privilege documents, personnel files, letters of reference, trade secrets, privileged information, sexual harassment investigations, work product and drafts of city council members, deliberative process materials of city council members, real estate appraisals, and investigatory files compiled for any law enforcement purpose. And one of the things that Colorado has done is they've created a secondary records law that has to do with criminal justice records. So criminal justice records are held and maintained under a slightly different law called the Colorado Criminal Justice Records Act. And if anybody wants to know what's going on with cases or that kind of thing, they actually have to go through a separate process by state law.
So just to speak on the process of the CORA, so just so you all know that the city clerk is responsible for serving as the contact point for all inquiries regarding records requests. So we will facilitate that request from start to finish. So those are filed with the city clerk. We are able to initially decide, okay, is this something that is perhaps a criminal justice report, and would this person need to do a separate filing? At that point, we establish who is the custodian of those records, the keeper of those specific documents that are being requested, and then we facilitate the process. So under CORA, you have 3 days to fulfill those requests, and then certainly there are provisions so that if it's an extended request, that we can kind of reach back out to the requester and let them know it's going to take us a little bit longer. But by state law, and certainly we strive to get everything out within those 3 days. So from the day that a request comes in, that day does not count. It would be 3 days after that, and that's 3 business days. So we facilitate those. We're working on a automated process, and we'll hopefully be rolling that out by the end of the year, where people can go to our portal, our meetings portal, and file their requests directly online, and it'll automate and route, and the response will go back out. It's a great way for us to track it. We track all of our requests, but this would be a great way to go back and search previous requests and that type of thing. So we are working towards that, and we are hoping to roll that out soon. So we have our CORA policy up online, and it's also going to be provided to you in the resource guide that our city manager mentioned. And then it is in the book that you just received from City Attorney's Office as well. So that's our CORA policy, and it kind of just outlines what that looks like. Why is CORA important? And I can just tell you the legislation for CORA is consistently changing and evolving. But this is a way to ensure that we have a transparent and open government. It guarantees the public access to public records, promotes accountability of the city employees and elected officials, and it ensures that a portion of the cost of producing records is borne by the requester and not all other taxpayers. So there's a reason it's important, and we want to make sure that we are able to provide the public what we can.
The Open Meetings Act is something that we'll be dealing with, because to do things like tours, we jump through some hoops to make sure that we are complying with Open Meetings Act. But basically, what this means is that you can talk to one other person about a matter of city business, but not 2 other people. So if 3 or more people discuss a matter of city business, that qualifies as a meeting. And one of the things that you have to do, and members of boards and commissions, anybody who is acting in a decision-making role for the city, has to be very careful that you don't call one person and say, hey, what are you thinking about X? And then call the next person and say, hey, what are you thinking about X? Because those serial conversations qualify as a meeting. So the goal of this is that decisions are not made in secret. The public needs to know what individuals relied on when they were making their decisions that impact the public. So there's a reason for the way this law is written, and it actually is not updated very often. It's interesting, Cora is updated a lot. Every legislative session there's a change to it. But this one has been standardized. It's been in place for quite a while. And it's critical to remember the rule here. Any kind of gathering convened to discuss public business in person, by telephone, electronically, or other means of communication by 3 or more elected officials. So if you're having a conversation and you think it falls within that entire definition, then it's a meeting. It needs to stop immediately. One of the things that you also need to remember is if you're not discussing city business, you can talk. And examples of this are city councils will oftentimes have a golfing team, and they'll go out and they'll golf at some kind of fundraiser or something. Absolutely fine, as long as they're not discussing business. Or this city council will get together for a holiday meal. Absolutely fine, as long as city business isn't discussed. So socializing is not prohibited. It's just incumbent on each of you as individuals to remember the rules and to abide by them. Sean asked me to put together some quick slides on conflicts of interest and council liability. So I just went back to CIRSA and pulled up some of theirs. This first slide, though, is the guiding principle that was adopted by this city council, I think in 2006, for your rules of ethics. So this is the main ethical rule that you're bound by. There are a few others, and again, we'll have a discussion over this at a study session in the next couple of weeks. But you can't accept any personal gift, gratuity, favor, entertainment, loan, or any other item of monetary value from anybody who basically does any kind of business with the city. So there are additional guiding principles that are in state statute, and they're in your book. I've provided them to you. You can look at them. But the state statute highly discourages participating in decision-making on matters with which you or a business or the business of your spouse has some kind of economic benefit. That can mean money, but it can mean other kinds of economic benefit too. So again, it's something that we'll be discussing at the study session coming up. Next. This is what CIRSA is our insurance provider. They're not really an insurance company, but it's the easiest way to conceptualize them. And they're the ones who basically tell us what it is they're going to pay for and what it is they won't. So their presentation on what fiduciary responsibility to the city is, I take that as very important. And this is one of their slides. One of the things that they like to remind people is before you become a city council member, you are a member of the community with strong opinions from the community, or you're running for a seat on council and may have strong opinions on that. But once you are elected and become part of this body, it shifts, and you take an oath, and that oath is about protecting the fiduciary and other needs of the city as a whole. And that oath binds you as a body toward that goal. So one of the 5 things that CIRSA, they're happy to come out and chant them to you, but I think you can read it just as well, to remind city council members to commit to respect the boundaries and allocations of responsibility set by law. And what they will say to us over and over again is, stay in your lane. If your charter says don't get involved in personnel matters, don't do it, because they can't protect you against any liability associated with that action. And again, they say it in a different way in line number 2. A commitment to lawful conduct, including constitutional requirements such as providing due process in quasi-judicial matters and following criteria set in ordinance and making decisions. And a lot of times, I think planning and zoning decisions are the best example. Lots of folks in every community are frustrated with the planning and zoning rules. You even may be frustrated with planning and zoning rules. But if they're the rules, you have to follow them, or you have to change them. You can't just say, I don't like the rules, so I'm going to ignore it. A commitment to ethical practices, including the avoidance of practices that lead to unwarranted financial or other gain, and a commitment to professional courtesy and respect for one another's divergent viewpoints and styles. Next, I think there's one more. So, government is conducted in the open, and this is critical. This city is really careful to have everything happen in the open that possibly can happen in the open. But occasionally there are matters with fiduciary implications that have to happen in executive session. The state legislature recognized that when they created the Open Meetings Act. Primarily, that's areas of legal advice or litigation issues, which, if the whole world knew what your thoughts were or what the attorney's thoughts were, that information would be used against you in that lawsuit, in that matter. Personnel matters are protected and should never be discussed by members of City Council, especially not from the podium, but they should never be discussed. And issues subject to negotiation. So again, those are the 3 primary ones that the state statute created that impact this City Council. There is some case law that says discussing confidential matters to the detriment of the city's fiscal and legal interests is a violation of one's fiduciary duty to the city, and there can be implications for that, but what I know is that will never be an issue of the city. I'm just letting you know what CERS is reminding everybody. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Allison. And that was the, believe it or not, the really long, boring parts, all of those, with apologies to our legal team and myself and the roles that the charter says. But, they're really foundational. It's things that we really need to know and understand to really, again, kind of stay within those boundaries. We're going to move now into hopefully a little bit more interesting, at least more graphically interesting, before we move into finance and budgeting. And that is just a picture of the organizational chart. Now, the reason this should be interesting is because this is the first time the revised organizational chart is being kind of unveiled. The directors and the staff do know kind of how we've, Dorothy and I, as the deputy city manager, and I have divided up the departments. But what we're really doing is, number one, taking the things that she's really strong in terms of parks, library, recreation, as well as all the kind of internal functions that the city does really well in terms of, finance, HR, IT, those really internal serving functions, and kind of putting those under her purview, where those directors will be reporting to her. And then the more outward facing, with the exception of Parks and Rec as well as Municipal Court, those more outward facing departments are really ones that I'm going to be working with directly. But as she and I have talked about, as we've all talked about as a director team, really, we're all in this together. It's simply kind of a who does the evaluation at the end of the year, which we actually will also partner on as well. So does anybody have any questions about kind of this breakup of the departments? One of the things that a predecessor of mine in another community had when he arrived was 12 direct reports, and it was just untenable. Best practices in the corporate world, government world, et cetera, say that that's usually, 6 is about the optimal for that, the number of direct reports you should have. So we hope that we've done that. I think, Dorothy, I'm sorry, you're out of boundaries of best practices and you have 7. But of course, municipal courts is one that, it obviously reports to the judge. The Tamara Wolf is actually a liaison to the director team, but actually reports to the municipal court judge. Yeah. Well, this is just the line of the city manager. So basically, you can think of Allison and I kind of side by side. So she has kind of her departments that report to her, and then our divisions, people, staff, and then I have these. So this is just focusing on my portion of the org chart. Yeah. Yeah, and Chris and I have talked about the need to create kind of a broader, this was something that we wanted to, it was easier to fit on one page, and so we are working on a completely citywide organizational chart that will show those. But the courts will never, correct, and the courts will not fall under the city attorney nor under me, because again, they are basically another branch of government. Elected by the judges, elected by the the people. In some cities, the municipal court judges are appointed by the council, but they will not fall under either. The only reason they're noted here is because the courts have asked to have a liaison to the director team, which will liaise directly with Dorothy. Right. Yeah, the city manager does. You're exactly right.
And this is really just their reporting structure, right? So we're talking about just the charter, any type of complaints or the way that council functions, we go directly to you. Doesn't necessarily mean that we have to go through the city manager.
Exactly. Right, but certainly I think you can think of Dorothy as a backup. If you can't reach me, I think Dorothy definitely is the backup to make sure that you guys are getting the information that you need. At this point, Maria is going to come up. As you may know, facilities maintenance and kind of that part of the organization falls under Public Works, and so I thought she could tell us a little bit about the structures, but also maybe some of the water resources that are not on this chart.
Thank you, Sean. For those, I think everybody knows me, but I'm Maria DeAndre, the Director of Public Works. So this graphic just shows some of our key facilities. Overall, the city manages just under 300,000 square feet of space, and that's not including the buildings out at the South Platte Water Resources. So just these other facilities that you see here, the Civic Center, the 2 rec centers, our water treatment plant, and the new police department represent almost 300,000 square feet of space, so quite a bit. You can see here as well, we also provide custodial services for all these facilities, and then we do provide custodial services for some of the administrative areas out at the plant. And then we also have the service center out here, I guess that's shown in one block, where many of our operations and maintenance staff are housed out of that facility. We would encourage you, our new police department just opened in April of this year, and we'd be happy, and I'm sure our police staff would be happy to arrange a tour out there because it is a state-of-the-art facility. Oops.
Yeah, I think that's your only slide.
Okay. Oh.
Could you talk about McClellan?
Yeah, I thought I had those 2 slides too. So just a little bit about the Englewood Environmental Foundation. That's about 50 acres. We're in that area right here, right now. We do have a map of that which we can provide, and there's be a short write-up in your packages as well. So that was originally developed in the late 90s when Cinderella City was here. So the city actually acquired that property and demolished most of the structures. We kept this building and repurposed it, and certificates of participation, which are similar to bonds, were issued to redevelop this site as well as deal with the environmental remediation of those previous buildings. So since that time, the city still owns the underlying land, and then the buildings that sit on top of it, for example, Harbor Freight, some of the other buildings that front along Hampton out here are actually owned by the developer, but we own the EAF owns the underlying property. So we do work with various property owners. They pay in, and then we do what's called common area maintenance for all of that land. And then the EMRF, which is located roughly at the intersection of C470 and Lucent Boulevard, if you're familiar with that area down in Highlands Ranch. That was the Englewood McClellan Reservoir Foundation, And that property was acquired quite a long time ago as a buffer to the McClellan Reservoir that's located on the north side of what is now C470. That's a major water right for the city. And so the land around there was owned or is owned by eMurph and managed through various leases. So we have a variety of car dealerships, and there's the Children's Hospital, if you're familiar with that intersection, is located down there, as well as UC Health is developing a piece of property down there as well. We're currently wrapping up a road project. We built a road out there to further facilitate some additional potential leases out there. So,
Maria, apologize for those other slides on eMurph not getting in there, and I'm going to put you on the spot one more time, which is another kind of hybrid facility, a couple of facilities, which are the fire stations, in which are, of course, occupied by Denver Fire, but we maintain ownership of the building, the land, et cetera. What's our relationship to those facilities?
Correct. As Sean mentioned, we have 3 fire facilities, 3 fire stations. 2 are being actively used by the Denver Fire Department, but we, through the contract agreement, when that went in place, we still maintain ownership and maintenance responsibilities for those. So our goal is to work with Denver Fire to develop more of a long-range strategy for making sure those facilities are up to date and state-of-the-art so that they can continue to do their jobs out of there. The third one, the Tejon Fire Station, which is kind of located on the northwest corner of town, is leased to a company that does pavement striping. So that's been in place for several years, I believe since 2015.
Thank you so much. And I will mention that we have now gotten, I think, 3 calls from the people that are occupying Tejon saying that they want to buy it. At some point, we're probably, that's a council decision, but I did just want to make you aware that that particular facility, I think in the last month, we've gotten at least 3 calls. And so that's something that as we kind of put together information, we'll bring to you for consideration. At this point, I want to ask Maria Sabata to come up and talk about the finance and budget, and then we'll give you a break.
Good evening, I am Maria Sabata, and we're going to start with a short video. My name is Maria Sabata, and I'm the Director of Finance. I've worked for the city since August of 2018. Finance currently has 15 employees, and we support not only the citizens, but also the taxpayers and our internal city staff here at the City of Englewood. We take great pride in our work. There are 4 individuals within the Finance Department that have a combined years of service of over 102 years. We have the opportunity to serve internal business partners and, of course, our citizens. Our team supports the preparation of the annual budget, procurement, including requests for proposals, competitive bidding, and contract policies and procedures. Our accounting department prepares the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or the CAFR, the city's audited financial statements that in 2018 was 182 pages long. Accounting also supports accounts payable and merchant card processing and central cashiering. Finance greets many wonderful City of Englewood citizens at these windows when they come to pay their utility bills. Approximately 70,000 utility bills are paid for at these windows annually. Joanna and Carol always greet customers with a smile. Come inside and take a look at our space within City Center. We have many taxpayer questions that are answered at the windows as well regarding business licensing requirements and payments. Finance also has a revenue department. Heather, Jamila, Brittany, Lorna, and Debbie enjoy working with the businesses within Englewood to ensure their questions are answered quickly and to ensure that they are licensed to conduct business within the City of Englewood. We have 2 individuals supporting procurement for the entire city and South Platte Water Renewal Partners. The city is very busy following the procurement policy recently updated and approved by council in April 2019. To date, Eva and John have processed 80 contracts in 2019 as compared to 67 completed during the full year in 2018. Come a little further. These are our office spaces.
Kevin, Christine, Kathy, Jessica, and Carolyn work within our accounting area. Together, they are all so knowledgeable and maintain our financial system of record in Tyler New World. Come a little bit further. Finally, we hold our team meetings weekly to ensure keeping the finance department current on items we're preparing for council and the city manager. Sometimes this is challenging, especially during budget season, and we interrupt Jenny a lot when she's preparing the budget book. We really do enjoy serving the city.
Welcome to council.
Now you all understand why I chose finance as a career versus acting. Thanks for that suggestion, Sean, that we do videos. No, actually, we enjoy putting that together, although I learned today that we should take our cell phones and put them in the opposite direction. Thank you, Sam, for that suggestion. Just a little late. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and giving us an opportunity to share with you what the finance organization does. This is the first section of what I'll be presenting tonight, and this will be similar to what the other departments will also be sharing. And we decided to tie in the budget because they're so closely related. A lot of the things that I'll be talking about are repetitive to what you just heard, but I understand that it takes a lot of many repetitive messages to help you learn. And actually, that's one of the things that I enjoy the most about my career is helping individuals that don't have a finance background actually learn about finance. And when I see that aha moment, it really is fulfilling for me, and I think fulfilling for my team. So I do want to mention that I realize there are going to be several conversations regarding these topics, and I am always available if you'd like one-on-one discussions regarding the budget and the processes that we have in finance. I'm happy to do that. So our mission statement within finance, of course, one of the key responsibilities we have is to promote fiscal responsibility within the city of Englewood with integrity, efficiency, excellence, accountability, and teamwork. And we absolutely are 100% committed to ensuring that the generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP, is followed, and that we have the appropriate internal controls to safeguard the city's assets. And as was mentioned, we do have annual audits that are conducted by Hinkle & Co. They're currently under contract with us to prepare our audit, and we bring forth that report annually. We serve as the custodians of the city's financial records and as a source of financial information for city council, city staff, taxpayers, and Englewood citizens. We also develop and implement and monitor our responsible fiscal policies. We had just talked about, the procurement policy that really was an effort of all of the department directors in sharing what they felt would work best in today's world, given just changes in procurement, not only within the city but also nationally. And we worked hand in hand with council to make sure that we put forth a comprehensive policy that enabled us to be flexible but also very diligent in getting competitive bids and getting requests for proposals. And I think it's going very well. And to be mindful about the expenses that should be brought forth to council for approval. And of course, we prepare the comprehensive and balanced annual budget. So with those mission statements in mind, our vision really is to empower city staff, city council, taxpayers, and citizens to make informed decisions by providing accurate information and support. And that's really the piece that I was talking about before. Our goal is to really share information that enables you as a council and also all of the department directors and staff members to make decisions and to really understand why they're making the decisions they're making and how they benefit the city. So we talked about charter responsibilities for some of the other areas so far, and everyone's going to come forth and tell you these things. So our role within the city is to assist the city manager to submit the annual operating and capital budget by no later than September 15th of each year. It's brought forth so that there can be appropriate review of the budget before we actually hold a public hearing within 3 weeks of that submission. So we do provide the budget in the city clerk's office for review, and this year we actually did put not only the budget book online, but we also included in OpenGov a line item detail of the budget so that you are able to see by department how expenditures are being proposed to be made throughout the fiscal year. We certify the tax levy no later than October 16th of each year. And we ask council not less than 30 days prior to the first day of the next fiscal year to adopt a bill for the budget and a bill for the appropriation ordinance. And this year, we were successful in the month of October in 2 of the meetings to actually have the budget approved within that requirement within the charter. We also manage the fiscal year appropriations with diligence and take action to address any potential annual deficit. We did have some discussion regarding that, as you'll recall, earlier this year in 2019, and it's our commitment to make sure that you're made aware of those deficits early on and how we're going to address them, rather than waiting until we've produced the annual the audit. And if it would be the case that we would have to bring something forth, there would be a budget supplemental that we would ask you to approve. We also oversee Treasury, all the bonded indebtedness, and city purchases and sales. And again, I mentioned the audit that is prepared. My team is responsible to work with the external auditors and make sure that they have all of the information they need in order to bring forth a comprehensive audit report for your review. I absolutely. Yes. This is a look at our organization. These are the individuals that I would deem that are in key leadership positions reporting to me. Jenny Nolan, our very seasoned and very knowledgeable budget administrator. Heather Driscoll is our revenue and tax audit supervisor. Eva Boyd is our procurement administrator. And Kevin Engels is our finance manager. So if I can talk a little bit about each component of, or each team within the area of finance. We have the budget organization, and when we begin the budget process, and I'm going to be showing a calendar a little bit later, we really do use assumptions that are based on local, state, and nationwide economic indicators when we're starting to think about and formulate revenue guidance and suggestions for the council to consider. We also provide financial analysis to drive informed decisions when we're talking to not only the council but also our internal department directors regarding fees. And we have had a lot of discussions this year about fees specifically for the enterprises as it relates to our fees and rates and the support for that. And we're going to continue to mature as an organization so that we can provide more information to you regarding how those fees and rates support the costs of the city to support those areas. Obviously, we work with the city staff to create the annual operating budget, but also the capital budgets. We develop a lot of city council communication, but I actually enjoy that part too as a part of the explanation of why we're asking you to make decisions. We also maintain budget data within Tyler New World, and we are constantly seeking efficiency and developing new tools to enhance reporting. You'll see that was one of our major accomplishments in 2019. Actually, Jenny Nolan really took it upon herself because of the time that it took within Excel to put all of the data together for the budget report. When we were approached by a vendor that actually has an automated system, she just jumped on it right away, and I really appreciated that because the time that it will save going forward is monumental, and it will actually enable us to spend more time understanding the details of the budget and bringing forth communication to you. Within finance and accounting, as I mentioned, one of their key roles is to make sure that we adhere to the generally accepted accounting principles. They prepare the comprehensive annual financial report, which we refer to as the CAFR. From this point forward, we will always refer to it as the CAFR. Oversee the city's merchant card processing, our central cashiering, as I mentioned in the video, and our accounts payable function. It manages the city's investment strategy. We have close to $100 million in investments. And we We within finance also maintain the city's primary ERP system, which we refer to as Tyler New World, or Tyler. The revenue and business licensing function is primarily responsible for managing the city's tax and licensing function. It maintains MuniRevs, which is our city's tax and licensing system. Approximately 98% of our taxpayer filings and forms are completed online. Facilitates MuniRevs enhancements to provide ease of use and better communication with taxpayers. You know, I always like to mention the strength of my team members, and Heather Driscoll is, who most of you have met. She is a very silent leader, and she always comes to me with recommendations to enhance things within this area, and I'm very appreciative to her. And so there have been several enhancements to MuniRevs that she championed, again, silently, and made sure, and is trying to make sure that our taxpayers are served well, and businesses. So this group also works successfully with local taxpayers through our relationships with the Colorado Municipal League, or CML, the Chamber of Commerce, and Alliance for Commerce in Englewood, or ACE. Procurement, as I mentioned, enforces our city's procurement policy, which it was actually approved, but it went in April, but it went into effect in May, 30 days after the referendum period. This ensures that our purchase orders are for supplies, materials, equipment, and contractual services required by the city are procured with required documentation. And again, I mentioned these during the video: the request for proposals, competitive bidding, contracts, and P cards. We have a substantial use of P cards within the city. We are evaluating our procurement or our P card policy, and we will be issuing an addendum to that or a revision in the next several weeks. Again, the department directors played a part in those discussions. I think it's a great policy, but the reason it's important, I mean, we spend close to $5 million on P cards. It's for ease and flexibility in spending. There are a lot of rules that go along with that. But one of the benefits that we get from it is a substantial rebate. And last year, the city received $60,000 in a rebate from Wells Fargo based on the percentage of usage that we had. So I think it's a very good program to support. Also, Eva is very gracious and provides citywide training on procurement, vendor, and purchase order systems. She not only holds formal trainings, but she does one-on-one training. And I sit right outside her office, and I will tell you, she gets multiple questions a day, and she is very gracious and humble and helpful. I really appreciate her on our team. So our major achievements in 2019, we presented a 2020 balanced budget in October, and the ordinance was passed. Again, we have a new procurement policy that is in effect, and we are currently revising the procedural documents, of which one is the P card procedural document, but there will be a broader procedural document as well to support the new policy. We also brought forth standard definitions and passed a new standard definition to provide clarity and simplification of taxpayers operating in multiple jurisdictions, so the definitions are very clear of what a taxable item is. We also passed universal business licensing in September of 2019 and delivered a clean financial audit that supported the 2018 CAFR and supporting policies and procedures. We also, and this is a little bit different, we engaged the city staff and city council on bond issuance revenue requirements for stormwater, sanitary, sewer, and water, critical projects, maintenance and operations, and capital reserve needs. This is an ongoing, it's an accomplishment in that we've started that conversation. I mentioned earlier that really part of the learning process of finance is talking about things over and over again so that it becomes clearer with every conversation. There are so many, these are very complicated topics, and I think it's not only an education for all of you, but it's also been an education for me as we've gone through it as I've gone through it as a municipal finance leader, but also for my team. I mentioned earlier that Jenny implemented a system. It was called Workiva, and it is a software that will streamline not only the budget, but also the CAFR document preparation. We also are supporting an implementation of new credit card merchant processing for central cashiering, sales and use tax, municipal court, library, and community development. Our 2020 goals, again, to prepare a balanced 2021 budget. We always strive to deliver a clean audit. We will continue to identify the required revenue needs for the bond issuances related to those projects that I mentioned before. We will finalize enhancements to muni revs, including an online use tax form and payment on account. And we also, to support the universal licensing plan or ordinance that was passed, we plan to develop a communication plan that will increase our understanding throughout the city of what this means for our businesses. We will also implement Tyler New World contract module. We will continue to ensure compliance with the procurement policy, and we will support the implementation of a new utility billing, human resources, courts, and permitting system. Okay, so I'm going to take a breath. That's a lot of information, right? So I think what was really successful with this year's budget was establishing up front what the timeline would be and when finance would actually have touch points with city council or commissions, and when we would be bringing forth ordinances. I'm happy to say that we really stuck to this schedule with your support, and I appreciated that because there is a lot of information to share. And again, a lot of it was repetitive, but I think part of the reason that we were successful in helping council build an understanding of the budget was having so many touch points throughout the year. So my plan for next year is really working towards something similar. And you can see we really begin the budgeting process as soon as we've ended the last one. At least that's how it feels. So in Q1, we will begin with, more than likely, with a budget preview in February, and we would come forth using those economic indicators in March to present revenue and expenditure forecasts and underlying assumptions. You know, this year we were fortunate in that those assumptions really carried forward through the budgeting process. They didn't change significantly. That was very helpful. In years where things may change after we bring that forth, things can become more complicated in a budgeting process because there has to be more explanation. For example, if we start to see a downturn in the economy mid-budget cycle, I would have to come forth and say, you know what, we're going to have to adjust our revenues and expenditures accordingly. That would make it more challenging for the team too, because they have expectations of what they might be able to spend money on next year or what they've put forth. That's where the challenging conversations with council could really begin, because we've got to reprioritize. We actually, and this was a great day for people in finance. It was a great day. I'm not sure if it was a great day for everyone, but and I'm kind of moving down. We talked about we had a workshop in Q2, and we spent a lot of time early on talking about what the priorities were, and so we'll plan to do that again. And we talked not only about the operating expenses, but we also talked about the capital requests. And you can see that in June, we are required to give the Planning and Zoning Committee a capital improvement list that they're able to review and provide suggestions to you as a council as to what they would recommend that you actually move forward with. The heavy lifting really starts in the third quarter, where we start to present almost every meeting in study session and the regular session certain areas of the budget, and you can see that leads up to the budget public hearing, which I outlined was September 16th this year, and then we discuss any changes in September moving towards October adoption. So I plan to stick with a calendar similar to this moving forward. So these are numbers that you will see over and over again, and we can talk more about the components of each one of them. Wanted to include them. For 2020, our budget for all funds, you can see, was approximately $120,274,700. That's under fund uses. And you can see, you know, for our sources of funds, obviously the biggest contributor is our general fund, which was $53,089,689. The special revenue funds are funds for restricted use, including like open space funds or the conservative trust fund. Our debt service funds are where we have the payments of general obligation bonds, principals and interest, or principal and interest. Capital project funds, I I think that speaks for itself, our major infrastructure projects. Our enterprise funds, which account for operations financed and operated similar to a private business. And again, we had a lot of instruction this year as we went through it. We did a preliminary overview of the budget with council. I'll probably do that again where we talk a little bit more about each of these funds. This is just an overview. But our internal use service funds account for financing of goods or services provided by one department to another. So those are the primary, or those are all of the budgets, all of our funds for the 2020 budget. This is a breakdown of our general fund revenue. Again, because this is our largest source of funds, I thought it would break it down a little bit more. Our sales and use taxes account for approximately 61.6% of our total revenue. And you can see all other related revenues and what their percentages are as a percent of the total, just to give you an idea. But again, we can go through each one of these as we go further through the budget process. Thank you. And our expenditures. Approximately 60% of our expenditures, so the $53 million that we spend solely in the general fund, now I'm speaking, goes to service-related activities such as public works, police, and parks and rec. And you can see the support organizations, and you'll be hearing from all of the directors how large their individual budgets are as well, as pieces of the bigger pie. So I wanted to let you know that the information that we prepare for the budget can be found on Open Englewood, but we lovingly refer to that as OpenGov. So if you hear me talk about that, but actually what you want to type in is Open Englewood. Our historical financial and budget reports are on the City of Englewood website. And in the guide that we've been talking about that you'll be given next week, I actually have the URL so that you can cut and paste right into your browser, so you're able to go to those directly. And as I mentioned, I'm very open to any questions that you have. If you'd like to sit down and review anything with me, just contact me. I'm happy to help. All right, can you lower that a little bit? Yeah. Okay, oh yes, that's fine. Okay, so now we're gonna have a little bit of fun before you take our break, unless if you wanna ask any questions about the budget. Should we just go to our activity? All right. So I have asked Jessica Kilby to help me tonight. Jessica is one of our accountants, one of our newest accountants. So I was very grateful when she volunteered. She is passing out, I'm going to call them Dancing with the Star Paddles. And see, if it was Monday night, it would have been good because Dancing with the Stars on Monday night. I miss it now, but that's okay. Okay, so if you can put them in your lap because you don't want anybody to, you're going to do it just like they do. We're going to ask you some questions. And what I'd like you to do is I would like you to, when we have the answer, I'm going to, when you have the answer to this, I'm going to have you hold your answer down, and then I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and then you pull up the answer. And Jessica's going to record if you got the right answer, okay? All right, so question number 1. And actually, if you're paying attention, all of the answers were given to you tonight. I know. That's true. Although I have admitted I was wrong a few times when we've had discussions. Okay. How many pages, does anybody have the CAFR with them where they would really check this? How many pages are in the 2018 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report? Number 1, 97. Number 2, 224. Number 3, 182. So when I count to 3, put the paddle up for the number you think it is. 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
This is your idea.
Yeah, because I didn't know the answer.
Okay, so finance is fun. No, I'm just I know. Do you want to go get it? You'll probably get it during break. Okay. Okay. All right. Do you have that recorded? Okay. All right. Thank you. Jessica's a good counter. She's an accountant. Okay. Question number 2. Approximately how many utility bills are manually processed by central cashiering annually? All right, are you guys ready? Pick your answer. 1, 2, 3, go. I think that one was easy to record. All right, question number 3. How many combined years of service do the 4 longest term employees in finance have? 1, 92, 2, 102, or 3, 112? Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Question number 4. What percent of the general fund revenue is received through sales and use tax? 1, 72%, 2, 43%, or 3, 61%? Okay, oh, go ahead. Put your paddles up. Paddles up. You were late. Did you go? All right. Oh, I'm kidding. All right, number 5. Question number 5. What is the total 2020 general fund budget? 53,089,689, 120,274,700, or 44,446,174. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Go ahead. Hi, you guys are quick studies. Okay. All right. 2 more. What price did the city originally pay for Bellevue Park? Okay, this was not in my presentation. Huh. Okay, number 1, 359,000, 2, 4,080,000, or 3, 68,000. Are you ready? Oh.
The original section.
The original section. Wait, I was supposed to be asking you questions. Okay, but now, you know what? Now that you've asked that, though, I'm going to go find that out. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Huh? Yeah. Okay. Question number 7. What type of animal did the city of Englewood once pay to have removed from Bellevue Park? Number 1, a bear. Number 2, a horse. Or 3, a cow. 1, 2, 3, go. The answer is 3, cow. Okay, so Jessica is just going to take a tally. Do you want to go to break? Or okay, and then I'll pick up at the beginning if that's okay.
Just to announce the winners.
Yeah, I'll announce the winners when you come back from break. Okay. Should we use it for voting in the regular meeting instead of the board?
No, but we can certainly do that. It literally got finished thanks to Chris's hard work. about it anyway. Oh, really? Huh. What did you think was wrong? No, no, she didn't say anything wrong. I think it's just the clerk's signature. I can't remember. You have to go back to your slides. We'll give those to you. Go back to the start.
Oh, no. Was it a number? Sorry, was it a number or was it what I'm responsible for?
Well, you
Thank you so much. Okay, yeah.
She made you stay just for that? Oh, congrats. Oh, awesome. Okay. Very cool. Look at you knowing your district. The mayor had to tell me which one I was in. Tony, how did you get? Because of police or oh, congratulations. There you go.
Just a little bit of entertainment. Oh,
Oh, did you actually bring? Oh, because you knew. What do you?
looks like black ladies.
While everyone is coming back to their seats for the second and shorter half of the workshop tonight, I did want to tell the viewing public at home, because we are streaming this, that Inglewood had an airport. So we just found this out, and maybe some of you did know this, but it was at Yale and Monaco is what we're told. I'm sure it was more of a landing strip, maybe, but maybe it was more. Who knows? So I stand corrected that Inglewood did at one time have its own airport. So at this point, since we're all back in the room, we're going to announce we've actually had someone, I think, text or call in and say, please give the answers to the people. The people at home watching want the answers to the questions, so we're going to give those, announce the winners, and then we'll go on to the second and shorter half of the presentation.
Okay, I'm back. So I'm not going to put the questions back up. I'll just repeat what they are. So the comprehensive annual financial report, the CAFR, has 182 pages. There are approximately 70,000 utility bills are processed manually by central cashiering annually. The combined years of service of the 4 longest term employees is 102. The percentage of general fund revenue received through sales and use tax is approximately 61%. The general fund budget for 2020 is $53,089,689. What price did the city originally pay for Bellevue Park? $68,000. And the type of animal that the city of Englewood paid for to be removed at Bellevue Park was a cow.
Living or dead?
It had expired. It had expired. And I'd like to thank Christine Hart in accounting for coming up with those great questions. So thanks to Christine. Okay, so I have the winners. We have Joe Anderson, Rita Russell, Othaniel Sierra, and Lorette Valentine, and the mayor. And I purchased you with not my Cynthia card, my own personal card.
I know, I'm sorry. The second half of this presentation is shorter. The question was, can we use the coffee cards, gift cards that Maria bought with her own money and gave you right now, because we probably need the caffeine. But we are going to keep moving through the next part of the presentation, and it's just a couple of how-to guides, a handful of how-to guides. We want to start with Brad Power, who's going to talk about hosting a meeting. I will mention that there's a more detailed document that's in your council resource guide. You may remember that during a council meeting, this is something you've actually asked for. So the planning department has put together that, and Brad will cover it.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the current council, and members of the incoming council. As Sean mentioned, my name is Brad Power, and I'm the director of the Community Development Department. And I will be back with you to share our department overview in a few minutes, but I did want to spend a few minutes talking about a very important part of your roles as representatives of the community. All of you have experience with reaching out to the community. Some of you very recently, others of you not so much in the distant past, and you know how important that is to engage with the community beyond what happens on Monday evenings, either in this room or across the way in the city council chambers. So as Sean indicated, we've spent some time, and you will see it next week, putting together a how-to guide so that you can go out into the community and share discussions of shared interest of yourself, people that you may be working with in the community. Staff is available to help you with community meetings as well, so that you're able to do that and keep up the communication with your constituents or folks citywide. It's obviously it's an important tool to keep up to speed in terms of the engagement of the community and what's interesting to them, what community's priorities are, so you can reflect that in your own work as a group and as an individual council member. And that way is a just terrific way to keep the communication line open with your constituents and members of the public. So what you will get next week is a very detailed step-by-step guide for either doing your own community meeting or pairing up with a community organization, a service organization, or somebody out in the community that you want to have convey some information to your constituents, or if you want to have staff convey something to your constituents around an important community issue. For instance, earlier this year, I think it was in the spring, Councilmember Sierra invited myself and our redevelopment manager to a group of his constituents and talk about the city center and the prospects for its long-term redevelopment. So I just wanted to cover that very quickly and just say look forward to next week so you can see that specific how-to guide in terms of reaching out and communicating with your folks. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. I am going to cover council requests, some information about that. As you know, that's a pretty important process here that's well utilized by council. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges with that, some of the ways that we're trying to improve that system moving forward. So, as you know, it's a written response, request rather, or question from a council member, and you also get a response in writing. Typically, it's a little more complicated question, but they don't have to be. Some benefits are that you really have an assurance that council is really getting an answer to the question that they're asking, usually in a pretty timely manner. We try to turn those around in 1 week. Certainly if they're more complicated, they take a little bit longer. And also, just staff clarity on what information is being requested. So we know for sure what you want, because typically those requests are in writing, either in an email or into the online form. Some of the challenges is that, since I've been here at least, that I've seen, is that there have been a lot of entry points into the system, which I'm nervous could create an error on our part. So obviously you know that sometimes there are calls, there are emails. During council meetings you have an opportunity to do those. Sometimes in our one-on-ones that I have with each of you. And they're also coming in both through the city manager's office, and occasionally they go directly to departments. Now there is nothing wrong with any of those entry points, except that we're a little bit nervous that it opens it up to, number one, missing one of those, not quite getting the right information right. Also, I've been told that in the past that these occasionally have been used to more expose wrongdoing as opposed to really getting information and trying to get to the root of a complex question. Also, citizen requests are forwarded as council requests, and this is again on occasion, sometimes without editing or really reviewing the citizen request and taking into consideration, okay, is this kind of a mission critical question or comment that's being made? So there's also, in those cases where it takes a lot of time to answer questions, there is an opportunity cost. Sometimes those can be high. So again, what the question that we would like to ask council to ask is really, since you know that these are going to be a high priority for us, is to really think about, is the question that's being asked, particularly when it's coming in from a citizen, is it mission critical? Is it going to promote the goals that we've set forth for council? We believe that all questions are important questions, and we will answer all questions. But when they're submitted as a council request, again, they get pushed to the top of the list. Directors push the other projects aside, and we try to focus on getting that information to you. That may not be a process that you knew even was happening, but that's the way we treat council requests. So we think how to improve the process, really to create and utilize an online portal and review of these requests by you all in advance. Also, so what we would prefer to move towards is that iCompass portal. So you may know that we did the council shared documents kind of online portal. We also did one for council requests, where you can go onto that same system and enter a council request so that we know it's worded exactly as you asked us to do. You know, we've had some comments this year that, oh, we feel like the staff was wordsmithing some of our council requests, and so they're being translated kind of into a staff perspective. We don't want that to happen. We want them to be exactly like you have them. So either through the iCompass portal, also obviously continue during council meeting, email is always good. And then I also just wanted to close with some good and bad examples. These are supposed to be kind of funny. But a good example is, what is our criteria for requiring detention ponds and new developments? That was a question that someone asked actually the last month or so. And that's a great question because you're getting asked that by citizens probably, and you want to know for your own benefit when you see new development come up. And so that was a great example. And by the way, the doors were locked yesterday or on Veterans Day, so no one left it unlocked. But a bad question would be who left the door unlocked on the Civic Center on Veterans Day holiday. Obviously, if that actually happens and you notice it, feel free to give me a call and we'll deal with that appropriately. Probably not the best example for a council request. And then another bad example, and only because Number one, the amount of time it's going to take to find 20 years of history on vendors the city has used to purchase office furniture, but also is that a question that again is going to promote our vision, our goals for the city, et cetera. And so just kind of understanding that all of the questions are going to be our priority, and so being judicious with how those are asked. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Margaret, who's been running our presentation screen. I'll switch places with her as needed to talk about technology.
Yep. Okay. Well, the first one is our equipment that we provide to new council members, and that's an iPad that Sam handed out to you on break. So that was perfect timing, Sam. In addition to handing out the iPads, we also need you to come back in for some training on how to access the network, how to access your email, how to manage your spam, to review our IT policies, and to review the cybersecurity training that we have available. iCompass, I have on the taskbar iCompass, the website page, if you could bring that up. Control H. Yep. There you go. If you haven't seen the iCompass webpage, this is the meetings portal. This is where you can download your agendas. Sam, if you go to the document center at the top, yep. Perfect. These are the folders that we're working on creating. The one is council requests. We haven't finalized it yet. We're working on it where council members can go in and submit requests online. And then the second one is the City Council Shared Documents folder. If you have large items or items you want to share with multiple council members, this is a great area for you to go ahead and upload those. Thanks, Sam. City Clerk is the business partner for iCompass, managing the agendas in iCompass, so they will be contacting you to provide you a login and a password, and they will also provide you an overview of the system, the agendas, the shared documents, and council requests when we finish that development. IT security policies, these are policies on passwords, accessing the systems, kind of generally what to do, what not to do. So IT will provide an overview to you when you come in for your training. And then your key cards. So that is your badges that give you access in and out of the building, and these will be provided by Public Works. A Public Works team member will reach out to you to get you that key card. And then lastly, and Sam, can you bring up the website again? We have a mobile app that we would like to encourage you to direct citizens to use when they have questions or requests for service. The actual website. Right there, yep. So submit a request right on the front page. Go ahead and hit that, Sam. This takes you to the page on the website, shows you how to download the mobile app. There's a video at the very bottom. Keep going. It'll come up. There is a how-to video in that white box. I don't know why it's not loading. And then the logo for My Inglewood, if you haven't downloaded the app already, is that My Inglewood up at the top. Naturally. It's perfect timing. And then back to the PowerPoint. Thanks. I don't know why it didn't load. We do ask you to direct citizens to the mobile app because this is a central area for us. This has a place where all of the service requests are automatically routed. It also gives us a chance to do reporting. We can see what kind of requests are coming in, and we can do trending on different areas. If they're coming into multiple locations, it's hard to gather all of that data. If we can start funneling it into one area, it makes it a lot easier for us to do reporting on. And next up is, I don't know who's up.
Yeah, we actually have Chris Hargath and Tony are going to tag team your final how-to guide, which is on media and social relations. But before we do that, I do want to just acknowledge that when I got here, there were a lot of concerns that I received from most council members about what we're branding, I think now as Mobile Inglewood. And so because the system wasn't working. We had some concerns that those requests weren't being pushed out to staff. We've made some improvements to that, and we have a team of city staff that are working on that to continue making improvements. And we really, in the next month or two, want to have a relaunch of that to really get the public aware that they can, from their cell phones, enter in a pothole. They can enter in, tall weeds in the median, whatever it might be. They can enter those requests themselves, and they'll be routed to the appropriate department. So we've been working to make that better because we heard that there were some glitches with it. So with that, Chris.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Hargeth. I'm the communications manager for Inglewood, and happy to be here. So tonight, Tony and I are going to talk about media tips and policies, and also our social media policy, and give you guys a few tips there as well. So our policy is we want to work cooperatively with the media to disseminate information in an accurate, complete, and timely manner. So we really do want to work within their deadlines when we can. The communications department is responsible for the implementation of this policy. When communication staff is unavailable, an authorized spokesperson may be designated. We'll talk about that here in just a minute, how we would designate somebody to speak on our behalf. Any media inquiries received by the city of Inglewood will be referred immediately to the communications department. So you probably will get a call during your tenure. I know that Mayor Olson does frequently, so just give us a heads up when those come in, and we're certainly here to help you with those. Inquiries with the media are given a high priority by the city of Inglewood and should be responded to as quickly as possible. Every effort should be made to meet media deadlines and ensure that all information released is accurate and complete. And again, that's what my staff would be charged with. We're going to make sure that anything that we do give the media is of course accurate and complete. And this is what I was kind of alluding to earlier. If we feel like we're not the experts to speak on an issue, we're probably going to ask somebody on staff to do that. I think Maria DeAndrea is a really good example of that when we were dealing with the sinkhole. The media would rather talk with the expert than a communications person like myself or Tony. So we will from time to time, ask our department directors, maybe some of our managers to appear on camera so that we make sure that they give that really accurate information. Personal points of view. If you feel compelled to maybe write a letter to the editor, contact the media on a certain issue, just make sure that if it is your personal point of view, make sure you don't use your city signature in your email or use official City of Inglewood stationery. And it's probably a good idea to state, hey, this is my personal opinion, and it's not, an official opinion of the City of Inglewood. Law enforcement, the Inglewood Police Department has their own PIOs on staff. Those are Chad Reed and Scott Allen. Really our role in a public emergency would be to support them. And that happened when we were doing the homeless encampments along the Platte River. It was our role to support them in any way we could with the media. Bring that up a little bit. So kind of some tips, like Linda and I go through these a lot. Again, we're here to help you. So if you do get a phone call, we're probably going to create some talking points for you. I really like to start with 8 to 10 really good talking points so you have those in front of you, whether you're talking in person or on the telephone. Take those talking points, and we'll try to anticipate those questions together, and we'll practice the answers. Never go off the record. There's no such thing as saying this is off the record. Practice being brief. The media really likes those short, concise sound bites. And in a positive story that we're trying to pitch, those are more likely to wind up on air or in a newspaper. We'll help prepare a fact sheet. That's really helpful. Again, with the homeless encampments, we sent out fact sheets ahead of time. That way that information is already out there before they begin to ask you questions. Never say no comment. That's for the movies and TV shows. It's better to say, I don't have that information, or the one that I really like is I'm not authorized to speak to that. And then we can figure out offline how we want to respond. The interview itself, those can be difficult. Sometimes they're not a lot of fun, and a lot of times it's around a very difficult issue to talk about. So this is why we had our talking points. Be sure and state your talking points. Use transitional bridges to keep message on track. They start to get you off the track, bring them back on track with what's important here is, the bottom line is, the real issue is. That's a good question, but what's really important is, that's really helpful. Be concise to avoid being misquoted. That happened to me once in my career, and it was a really unfortunate misquote. So yeah, just make sure you're concise. Request seeing your quotes before they go to publish. It's okay to say, can I review that before you go to press with it? Or I can do that on your behalf. Avoid jargon. Here in government, we all like to use our jargon. The average person is not going to understand acronyms and jargon, so let's try to avoid that. And last but not least, correct misinformation. If you see something out there that you know is incorrect, let us know. I'll call the reporter. We'll try to get a correction if we can. We're frequently on social media correcting misinformation, and we will continue to be proactive in doing that. All right, social media. I do have a really quick video to show you.
Has been under fire since this social media post surfaced, one calling for Islam to be outlawed in schools.
Late tonight, we learned the new price the mayor of Piedmont will pay for those controversial posts to Facebook.
Acting Mayor Bob McBain had urged him to step down.
In a practical sense, if you are going to use social media, you better know how to use it. And two, if you're a public official, you need to be very careful about what you say and how you say it. And third, perhaps more importantly, at least in my opinion, that some of the things that Jeff said were just plain wrong.
Councilor Stone declined to comment this evening.
So that's what we want to avoid, right? That's what keeps me up at night personally. So let's go through, when we get our slide back up here, we'll go through some of these tips. And some of it, I mean, it seems like it's just common sense type stuff, but it happens. And it happens all the time, and we see it all the time. So just real quick, what is social media? Online technologies and practices that people use to share opinions, insights, experiences, and perspectives with each other. Why are we on social media as a city? We share emergency information quickly. We want to connect and engage with our residents, promote what we do, notify residents when there's a change to a meeting schedule or an event schedule, promote community outreach, and we monitor public opinion on social media. Some pitfalls, like we saw, these are people that get in trouble with their personal social media accounts. And so it's obviously not uncommon for council members and employees to get themselves in hot water for posts that they make. Think before you tweet, I think, is the mantra. So some tips. Post updates and comments. If you're in a public forum, I apologize for the typo there. Keep it light and positive. Control your privacy setting. Keep up with what changes Facebook makes. They're constantly updating those settings, and you really want to lock down your privacy. If you haven't looked at it, I suggest that you do so. Try and disconnect from the negativity if you see it out there. Unfriend or block people. As a council member, you might have people trolling you. Just unfriend them, block them, just move on from it. And show what you're proud of. Talk about it. If something happened, there was a vote that you're proud of, something that we accomplished, by all means, post it, get it out there. And finally, take care when posting pictures, jokes, memes, etc. And does everybody remember Justine Sacco? A couple years ago, but I think it's a really good kind of example of what not to do. So this was the tweet heard around the world. I'm not going to share what the tweet was. You can look it up on your own time. It was pretty offensive. But the amazing thing is that she was a communications director. And before she boarded a flight to Cape Town, I don't know if it was drinking and tweeting or what it was, but she didn't think before she tweeted. She only had 200 followers, but the tweet was shared and it was all over them. By the time she landed, it was on the news. It was everywhere. It had gone viral. She deleted her account, apologized, but she was fired immediately, so the damage was already done. Just remember, context is everything. And without facial expressions, without inflection, when we write things really quickly, things can be taken the exact opposite of how we intended them. So, thank you, team. High five. And I think we segue right into...
Yes, and we're now going to start the departmental overviews. Again, we have 4. They're about 10 to 15 minutes each, so we'll have you out of here pretty soon, hopefully.
Actually, do you mind if I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
So if you had a council account on Facebook and a personal account on Facebook, and this is actually more of a question for the city attorney, if you have a council account, are you able to unfriend or block somebody if you have
Yeah.
council?
So again, I'm going to repeat the question for people at home. So you're asking if you have a council Facebook account, can you unfriend or block people? And I think the answer is no, Allison, correct? And there are things in our social media policy where, we handle things like personal attacks on our employees in particular. And, we will at times hide those posts. We won't delete them, but we will hide them.
But I will let you know that
Other questions?
Hi, my name's Emma. You might remember me from this summer's Kids Stage video. Tonight, I'm here to introduce you to the Inglewood Communications Department. The department has 4 full-time employees, and they're lucky because they get to wear a lot of different hats. They have expertise in marketing, social media, graphic design, video production, web services, public relations, media relations, public outreach, event planning, printing, and more. Wow, that's a lot of hats. If you get a chance to come over and see them, they'd love to tell you more about what they do. Just don't forget to bring your favorite hat.
And we mean that. Anytime, if you have any questions, you want to learn more about what we do than what we don't cover tonight, by all means, please come and see us. So I'll give you a quick overview. A lot of it will kind of cover the things that short little video covered. But so our mission statement, we have a pretty standard mission statement, real similar to what other city governments would have for a communications department. But I like to say that it's our job to tell Inglewood's story. Its past, present, and its future. So this is our org chart. Some of you may or may not know we are reorganizing the department just a bit. Right now the team is myself and Tony Arnaldi, and of course you all know Tony. It's kind of why I chose not to put us in the video because you see our faces a lot. So what we're doing is we are adding a communication specialist, and that was done through combining 2 positions into one. And then we have our digital media and content strategist position, which right now is vacant as well. We spent this morning interviewing for the communications specialist position, and I I can tell you we're very excited about the quality of candidates that we're seeing. So we'll have those positions filled soon, and hopefully get them to introduce themselves to you all. So again, this kind of covers what the video covers. We wear a lot of hats. We do a lot of different things. I think we're a pretty versatile staff, and that's the kind of staff that Tony and I are looking to build as we move into the future with Inglewood. So our primary communication channels, the Inglewood Citizen magazine, of course. It goes to every postal patron in the city. It's probably our only means of communicating where we do reach everyone in the city. Of course, the website, and then social media. So you've probably noticed an uptick in what we're doing with video, and that's very deliberate. Here's some stats on video on social media. 45% of people watch more than an hour of video on Facebook or YouTube each week. Over 500 million people are watching video on Facebook every single day. And this is the one that I really couldn't believe. More video content is uploaded in 30 days than the major US television networks have created in 30 years. So people are watching video, they're paying attention to our video, and we're kind of seeing that bear out in some of the analytics that we're getting. So speaking of analytics, I'm going to have my own little trivia question here. So how many people do you think have watched one of our videos since May? Cheryl? Yeah, how many people have watched this City of Inglewood video since May? Total number of people. Just take a guess. Dorette? Take a stab. Take a guess. Rita? No, of all of our, how many, any video, all of the videos, how many people since May? Oh. Yeah. Any other guesses? John? Okay. 40 or 50? Let's say you didn't think very highly of me, 40 or 50. 15? Well, I think Lorette is the big winner here. 72,200. Good guess.
If it has anything to do with how many times I share your videos.
Well, you're helping out. And that, that's actually a good point. It does help us when you all get on there and like and share. And same goes for city employees. Our numbers go up, so it's very helpful. That's how I don't think anybody really knows how Facebook works. Yeah, could be. So, social media engagement is very important. Obviously, video is a very important part of it. So increasing engagement on social media is part of our strategy. And I think the Talk and Trash campaign is a really good recent example. We're reaching an audience that I think is reluctant to come and participate in person. The Talk and Trash campaign, the video was viewed 6,500 times, and it resulted in 722 people filled out the survey. And 250 attended the meetings in person. So those were a lot of voices that we weren't hearing previously. And one person commented, if you can't read that, it's a little fuzzy, but she says, "Love the survey option. Not everyone can attend the meeting, so thank you, Inglewood, for this alternative option to still have our voices heard!" Exclamation point. So that made me feel really good when we see that we're having that kind of impact. Accomplishments in 2019. We launched the Moments in Inglewood History video series for Throwback Thursday. I think those have been very successful. Doug Cohn, I know, frequently shows those at meetings. He's very proud of those, and those are his stories that we're able to bring to life through video, so I think that's great. We publish 4 issues of the Inglewood Citizen magazine. We will continue to do that. I talked about the reorganization of the department, and we identified some efficiencies there. I think the block party I had never attended, but the kind of feedback that we're getting, I think we had a really successful event, mostly thanks to Miss Tony here. She did such a fabulous job. And I used an app to figure out our attendance, and we figured it's about 7,500 people. And we're excited about this improved, I think, tree lighting event on November 30th, so we hope you'll all come out to that. It's in partnership with the Inglewood Chamber of Commerce. There's going to be a holiday market, some really, really fun and cool entertainment at that, so we hope you'll join us. And coming up in 2020, we're going to launch something called Asset Bank. This is an image library for the entire city so that people can easily find and download images for presentations, for printing, for website, for whatever it might be. That's really a big issue right now, is being able to find these photographs. We're working on a website audit and restructure. In a lot of ways, the website needs some help right now, and we're addressing those issues. And part of that's going to be this Site Improve software. Site Improve will automatically crawl our website and fix issues. We don't have a full-time webmaster, so a lot of those things are not being done on a regular basis, so this will be automated. It'll fix broken links, things like that. And we hope to launch a new website that is focused on news and events. You can see something really similar. The City of Littleton has one called littletonrocks.com. You check that one out. That's kind of what we're after. We want to improve the events that we have and maybe add some new ones. We are producing a quarterly update video. The first one is going to be launched tomorrow, so look for that. And we're going to write a communications and marketing plan. And that's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Any questions about communications?
I want to say that don't underestimate the help that he can give you if media contacts you, or if you think you want to contact media for something or give information. He's very, very good, and Tony, they work together really well. So I really appreciate the talking points that you help.
Yeah, and I think that's also a good point, that if there's a story out there that you think should be told that we're not telling, let us know, and we'll tell it.
Actually, this is actually more of a question for the mayor. What type of, do you receive calls, or what is it that the media is asking of you whenever they reach out to you?
It's usually problem-based, of something that's come up, an issue that they've heard about from, through a council meeting or something. But I've also, the newspaper, the Herald, will from time to time ask for things, comments on things.
But they'll go directly through you, and then do you bring in Chris, or?
Oh, I do. I always bring in
Okay.
Chris or Tony, and I often won't call them back unless I've talked to them first, just to get, do you know something's going on that I wouldn't know about, or whatever. And so they usually know a lot of these media people and know sort of what their approach might be. So they've been extremely helpful. Yeah.
And just to give you an example, internally, we do ask that anytime a staff member at any level of staff is contacted by the media, that again, they make the public information officer aware, the communications department aware. Certainly that's not a requirement of you, but I think it just helps us to make sure we understand what messages are out there so that we can, have some influence over that as needed.
I also should say that CML contacted me this year to write something on the Tri-Cities work that we were doing, and that was something that I, drafted up, sent to them, and asked them to look at it. Is it accurate? Is it legal? Is it, is it helpful overall? And they were very, very helpful with that too. So that was a little different thing.
All right. Next, we're going to have Police Chief John Collins come up and tell us about the police department. If you haven't noticed kind of our format, we're starting with the video, and then we're also want to tell you what the different major components of the department are, and then talk about what we've accomplished this year and what we plan to do next year.
Hey man, what's up? Did you hear about this video that we have to do today? I've been voluntold. No. Why? Well, since I'm the talented and handsome one, you get to shoot the video. Whatever you say, Tom Cruise. Hi, my name is Josh Martinez. I'm an officer with the Inglewood Police Department. We're here today to talk to you a little bit about what... Cut! Can we get a little bit of energy this time? Energy? Okay, Steven Spielberg. And action. Hi, I'm Josh Martinez, a police officer with the Inglewood Police Department. I'm on the impact team, and we're here today to give you a little presentation on what it is me and my coworkers do on their day-to-day routines. Welcome and enjoy the ride. Yes, I felt your passion. I felt your pain. For a minute there, I almost thought you were a real cop. Shut up. Let's go get a donut.
I had not seen that. And I was really worried about what was going to come out. But anyway, I'm John Collins, I'm the police chief. And tonight with me is Deputy Chief Sam Watson. Well, we collaborated on this presentation, so I know Sam wants to participate, so God bless him, I'm going to let him participate with me. So I did have to get some instructions on how to move this thing forward, so hopefully it'll work. Josh did mention what we have here is, it's the city's mission statement. And this was developed about 5 years ago by city staff. And it was a very simplistic statement, but still yet powerful. It was to promote and ensure a high quality of life, economic vitality, and a uniquely desirable community identity. So in turn, we establish our vision statement for the police organization, and the best way to do it is to start with the city's mission. And so what we came up with, and it was a department-wide collaboration again, was to promote and ensure a high quality of life and a uniquely desirable community identity by providing professional law enforcement services, developing strong collaborative problem-solving strategies with the community, and by treating everyone with fairness, dignity, and respect. And that's truly what we work towards each and every day. And so we have our organizational chart, and this is at the command staff level. You have me, and then you have Marlene Lammers, who is really the one in charge. Marlene does all, she's my administrative executive assistant, and I rely quite heavily on her. Nancy Wenig is our victim services coordinator. Sam Watson is the deputy chief, and under him are three commanders in charge of the three divisions, and that would be Kelly Martin, Tim Englert, and Vance Fender. You'll see these folks for the new people throughout the year. Trust me, you will see them, and a handsome group they are. And what we came up with here is that the police department exists because of city charter. And I won't read you the exact verbiage, but that's why we're here, because it's written in city charter, and the city's required to provide police and fire service and health services. And this is where Sam gets to interact with you folks. That's the phone.
Good evening. These guiding principles speak to our help us guide our activities, really gives us focus within our police organization, and I think most importantly speak to our organizational culture, and as we form that and work towards that. So the resource guide that the city manager talked about will be handed out next week. We'll have these in more detail. It speaks to our guiding principles speak to legitimacy, customer service, community commitment, safety, procedural justice, problem solving, and trend analysis. And I'd like to speak real quickly about a couple of those. Legitimacy is important for the police department in that it forms a public trust and the confidence that the public has in us as a police department. So that's extremely important to have a legitimate department perceived that way by the public. Procedural justice is important in that it gives the community a sense of interaction, that their story, their incident, the reason that they've contacted the police is heard, that it's understood, that the police officers, the police staff listen to that, and they take that into account as they're making their decisions. And as we make those decisions, it's made in a fair and unbiased manner. So procedural justice is extremely important. And then the last bullet on trend analysis is the data-driven part of our police department, that we focus our energy at the hot spots, the high crime areas, the high calls for service areas, and we focus our attention at trying to reduce the seriousness of those, whether they're crime related or public nuisance related or disorder related. Those are all very important. This goes with the flow chart. It'll be in your resource guide as well, so easy contact for us. As the chief said, we have 3 divisions within the police department. The first one is patrol, and within patrol there's different work units. And I will say that you're all welcome, current council, incoming council, to come out and ride, take tours, interact with us, and we'd love to show off our new building. A lot of you were there for the open house, and patrol is the cornerstone. That's the up front, what everybody thinks of when they think of our police department. And so that's broken into different units: the patrol team, the traffic enforcement team, zone policing, which is the data-driven, like I mentioned earlier, and school resource officer program. Those all work out of patrol. Special operations, the detective bureau, impact team, professional standards bureau, PSB, code enforcement, and property and evidence all work out of special operations. And then support services is communications, records, research, and procurement. And all very, very busy. As the chief said, each one of those divisions is overseen by a commander, and you'll see them at council meetings. You want to talk about our achievements, Chief?
Well, first, you got to talk about the new police building. And today was my first opportunity to have all of the South area chiefs and sheriffs at our new building to sit them down, have lunch, and give them a tour. And it's almost like that Ford commercial with the new redesigned tailgate. You know, their jaws just dropped. And quite frankly, it makes me proud. Proud of the community and proud of council, and I'm proud of all the work that was put into this, because it's a lasting testimony of what this city and what this department's about. It's a professional organization, and the community sees it as such. And when they all left, you know, I was proud. That's all I can say, because they got it. They said, this is nothing compared to what you used to have. And I said, well, I couldn't invite you over there because it wasn't safe. So anyway, that was one of our major achievements, but it's an ongoing event, because today, I think at 4 o'clock, Sam allowed the cops to park in the parking lot now. The gates aren't exactly ready to go, but it's good to go. And so, you know, it's moving along. And then this year, we have our RMS, or Records Management System. Again, it's a collaboration with all the chiefs and sheriffs in the 18th Judicial District, on all working under one shared records management system. And it's set to go live in February of 2020. And it was supposed to go in November, but the vendor, we had to slow them down, because if you want to go live, you want to go live right. And we just didn't feel the vendor was ready to do that. And so, and it also integrates with our computer-aided dispatch, which was a big project last year. And so now what you have in our records and dispatch systems is a truly current and professional way of conducting police business. And so I couldn't be more proud of that as well. The Platte River remediation, that was it was a tough deal. I mean, to put it to you that way. you're dealing with the homeless, folks that are affected by homelessness, and the way to approach that is not the old way of doing policing. These folks needed help. We went down there with Change the Trend, co-responders, and it was just not a matter of putting them off the river, but trying to help them get to a better place. And so, that to me was, it was an important event here in the city, and we continue to work with that pretty much every day. And then our Code Enforcement and Animal Welfare Unit was recognized as the Colorado Association of Animal Control Officers Agency of the Year for 2019. The CIT Co-Responder Program, what we did was, it's the integration and expansion of the CIT Co-Responder Program. This program integrates mental health clinicians with patrol officers to de-escalate potentially mentally ill subjects and to provide them with immediate treatment. And this is very important because we sit on the precipice of a new way of doing business in policing, and I am convinced of that. And so we started off with the topic of the co-responders helping the homeless, but now the co-responders are responding to the community's needs, because there are certainly folks that are in crisis and need help, and they're ready and available, and it's the new way of doing policing. You'll see that. The New York Police Department just went to it last week, so we're way ahead of them. So, and 2020 key priorities. We want to go live with the multi-jurisdictional records management system, expand the CIT co-responder program, which we have. We're going to 80 hours a week for co-responders, and right now we had 16. It's actually 16 and 1632, so it's going to be more robust. Fully staff all units within the department to include 911 Communications Center, impact and zone policing teams, as well as the Records Bureau. And you've heard me for years. This is probably one of the most challenging tasks that we have in law enforcement, is finding qualified people and keeping them. And it's very competitive, let's say, about how you, I hate to say it's called undercutting, but other agencies will snap them up if you're not quick enough. Enhance the organization's community outreach efforts, such as Neighborhood Watch, and research, develop, and implement the Restorative Justice Program, which we launch tomorrow with a meeting on how to deal with that as well. So we're very excited about that. Did I go backwards? I think it's done. Alrighty, any questions? Fast and furious. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. I do want to introduce our last speaker. I had told you we were going to do 4, but since time is drawing nigh to 9 o'clock, Brad will close us off with an overview of community development. And we will be pushing City Clerk to the next meeting.
Hi, and welcome to Community Development. I'm Will Charles. I'm a planner. Here we handle everything from development regulations to subdivisions. As well, we also have long-range planners, which handle things like the comprehensive plan. Also, good luck and welcome to City Council.
Hi, I'm Darren Hollingsworth, Economic Development Manager with the City of Inglewood. We work with businesses to help them stay and grow in our community, as well as work with new businesses to help them find resources to get started. We have several of those resources in our guide. We look forward to working with City Council. Congratulations.
Hi, new City Council. I'm Dan Faremba. I'm the Chief Redevelopment Officer for the City of Inglewood. Look forward to working with you and collaborating on some great redevelopment and revitalization efforts going forward, and wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Welcome, I'm Jerry Brown with the Building Division. We process your building permits, contractor licenses, plan submittals, and try to help you with any questions you might have with your construction needs. Good luck with your work on City Council.
On behalf of all of us in the Community Development Department, we wish you all the best of luck in your work over the course of the next 2 years.
Good evening again. Before I start, I guess I need to comment on the previous two videos that preceded me. One is, I did not expect to compete at all with Chris, because that's kind of what he does, but to John and Sam, and most especially Josh, well played. Community development. The mission of the Community Development Department: facilitate the physical development of Englewood according to established plans, codes, and policies. And you are responsible for largely establishing those three items that we work under. Whoops. Okay, sorry. I was in front of Margaret. We've nicknamed this the Frog because it looks a little bit like some type of animal, but these are our division managers, in addition to Nancy Fenton, our executive assistant, that much like John's group keeps our group humming along. But all four of these people, Karen Montanez, our chief building official, Darren Hollingsworth, economic development manager, Wade Burkholder, planning manager, and Dan Paremba, who was some of these guys were on the video. You will be seeing them throughout the year, presenting to you in terms of some of the policy choices you'll be making. So I wanted to identify them. This was directly pulled out of the charter, and it's very dry. It's very kind of bureaucratese. But what we try to do is take all of the development and big policies that have to do with land use, looking over the horizon, and work those through the codes. So one of the easiest ways that I try to contextualize what we do, especially as it relates to development, there's a whole private sector out there, including homeowners, that are making decisions about investment. And that could be a fence in the backyard, or it could be a huge multi-million-dollar development. And we all filter through the city's guidelines, policies, codes, in terms of the work that we do with those people. So that's really how we've been set up in terms of how we do development. The city also has a comprehensive plan that was adopted in early 2017 that is intended to look over that horizon for 10 to 15 years at a time, to try to figure out where in the communities are areas of stability, areas of change, and how council wants to amend the policies and start to shape the policies that guide the long-term growth of the community as well. Oddly, it spells out very enumerated discussions around the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Board of Building Appeals, but we also have four other groups that we identify with and provide support to, and I'll briefly mention them as well. But the Planning and Zoning Commission is a group that often sees the policies just before they come to you, especially as it relates to major development decisions and changes to our Unified Development Code. I wanted to go briefly through our planning division. First, again, they primarily work with the development community and homeowners and people who want to come in and change something on a property. So either develop something new, redevelop it, put in a fence, those types of things. So they really go through our Unified Development Code, also known as Title 15. That's kind of the Bible through which we work in terms of interacting with our clients, in terms of getting them on their way in their development endeavors. We also, as I mentioned, both formulate and update periodically the city's comprehensive plan, and that's in tandem with both the Planning and Zoning Commission and you as City Council. We engage in regional relationships. Dr. Cog, RTD, was mentioned before, so we have staff that interface with them on various planning-related issues that tend to be in that longer-term time frame as well. And then, in addition to the Planning and Zoning Commission and Board of Adjustment and Appeal, our staff provides support to keep Englewood beautiful, and the Historic Preservation Commission. Sorry, I just missed one of those. Building division, once everything is approved by our planners, things start to get constructed. And so throughout the construction phase of projects, our building inspectors, we have 3 full-time building inspectors that are in the field all day, every day, doing both interim and final inspections of what is actually being constructed in the community. We also do plan reviews at the technical level before things are starting to be constructed, so they meet safety guidelines. And then we license all the contractors that want to operate in Englewood as well. We have a couple of very, very high profile and very important employers Large employers, you can think of the hospitals, great examples, and we have very good close working relationship with both of those entities and some of our other larger employers. But it's interesting to note that about 75% of the companies in Englewood employ less than 20 people. And so we've geared our entire economic development program really to trying to work with that sweet spot in our local economy, which is the small entrepreneurial businesses that have been established or we want to get established in Englewood. How do we do that? We partner with 8 organizations that supplement our services. And our primary partner is the Aurora South Metro Small Business Development Center that we pair with to provide lots of training opportunities and larger gatherings for small businesses to get up to speed and doing their best. Last year we put over 600 people through one or another type of our economic development activities in Englewood. We have investment opportunities. We have 2 grant programs. One, if a business is just starting up and they need some help to get off the ground, we provide some grants for that. We ask for some business training in return for getting those grant monies. If they've been here for a little while and they want to expand, then they're ready for maybe a business acceleration grant, which provides them the next opportunity, maybe make a capital investment in their building. So we do that as well. So Darren Hollingsworth, our economic development manager, he's always kind of jokes that his job is jobs. And so that is the idea of our investment around economic development, is to really try to reach out and touch as many of the businesses in this community as we can on an annual basis, and I'll talk a little bit about how we do that. He also provides the staff support to our Alliance for Commerce in Englewood, one of your advisory boards. Redevelopment. Englewood is built out. We don't have a single vacant space of land that's large enough for any significant development. So everything that's going to be happening from now into the future is repurposing something that has already been built in the past. That's more difficult than it is if you have an undeveloped piece of land and that you can just lay out the infrastructure and then just go to town and literally, in some instances, build a town. We're infilling things that have already been established. You saw Dan Paremba in the video. He's been with us for about 1.5 years, and one of his first actions was to develop a redevelopment action plan, which is identifying the areas primarily in the central part of the city, primarily commercial, industrial in character. So you think about City Center extending east to the hospital district and up and down the core of Broadway, of what measures can the city take to try to have those areas be contributing and vital over time. One of the 2 key areas that he's working on at the moment is the long-term redevelopment of the city center, and we're actually starting to have some discussions around establishing a downtown development authority so the property owners in this core area of the city could share in the outcomes in terms of some of the common investments that may need to be made to sustain the central part of the city into the future. I won't belabor this point because the existing council members have heard me in the last couple weeks talking about our housing assistance programs. We provide the well-established Energy Efficiency Englewood, or E3 program, to qualified homeowners to make energy improvements associated with their home. And thanks to your efforts through the budget and what we reported last week, we're actually starting a home repair program in January that will help, again, income qualified people provide home repair efforts for some of the issues that may arise with homes. The idea around that is to try to preserve the existing housing stock of the city and to make that healthy long-term and help out the families that would benefit from it. Major achievements in 2019, the council adopted the accessory dwelling units. That was ordinance. That was a multi-year effort, both from the Planning Commission and from the City Council, to make sure that the ordinance was crafted in a way that could be supported. The council did adopt that in January. It became effective in February, and I guess I'll do an off the cuff because trivia seems to be the word of the night tonight. How many ADU permits have we issued since February? The answer is 0. We do have an application in, and we've had several people express an interest in developing an ADU, but this is not an inexpensive investment for people. And so that is interesting to kind of see how that scale is going, and we'll obviously keep abreast on hopefully having that first one go through the system. Major commercial development approvals, these were both council planned unit development approvals. The Hive, which is a redevelopment of the former Kmart at Broadway and Bellevue, and then the Synergy Medical Office building, which is under construction directly across from Swedish Hospital. We were really excited. This is one of the ideas that I had when I got here, was to create and conduct a citizen planning school. And we did that in the late winter, early spring of this year. And we had about 15 Englewood citizens that stuck through us for about 6 weeks and heard various speakers and points of input about how the whole planning world works. If you want to talk about acronyms, come spend some time with us. We live and breathe acronyms. And so we got them through that, and we want to repeat it, and we're going to be repeating it. Registration opens in January, and we'll conduct the school starting in mid-March. So stay tuned for some more information on that. Finally, we secured a very major grant through Dr. Cog and CDOT for the study that we're calling the Next Step study, that's going to really start to concentrate and take us to the next level in terms of some of the issues around the central part of the city. So we'll be looking at the long-term redevelopment of City Center. We're going to use some of that effort to continue the discussion about the possible formation of the Downtown Development Authority, and then also look at the future light rail corridor in terms of its long-term evolution and development. On the building side, after the unfortunate events of the flood in 2018, we provided various we did some grants for homeowner recovery, but one of the things we did is we waived fees for people to recover, and one of the very important parts of that is we wanted to make sure that people had ways out of some of these basement apartments, so we waived fees on egress windows, and for the community, those are still good until the end of this year. With IT, we've completed a solicitation process to modernize and put online many more of our development application processes, our building services processes, online payments. This is going to be extraordinarily helpful to our clients who want to access our services more remotely. So we did that this year, and we'll implement it in 2020. I mentioned the home improvement assistance. We've provided home E3 program grants for about 12 people in Englewood. That's about the limit that we can support through our federal funding that we have, so we do that on an annual basis. That's a very consistent number. And I mentioned the fact that we've created, and we're really looking forward to implementing the repair program next year. Economic development partnership, economic development, I mentioned the partnership with our primary partner, the council. Thank you for re-upping us for another 3 years with the Aurora South Metro group. We've had a really strong and really tight relationship with them. So we're very grateful for your efforts to recognize the fact that our first 3 years were very successful and that you wanted to continue that. We're really excited to say that we facilitated the relocation of 2 primary employers. Primary employers are the ones that pay the higher paying jobs, and they derive a lot of their income from outside of a community. There's a group called Core Consultants from Littleton. It's a civil engineering firm. They have bought a building in the 3400 block of South Broadway, and they're going to be relocating their 45 employees from Littleton sometime in 2020. Darren recruited that group to Englewood, so I want to give special acknowledgement to him for his very forthright work with them. Another one that we can't quite announce yet is a Denver architecture firm that has about 20 people. They too have purchased a building in the core area of South Broadway, and they're planning to relocate their company to Englewood. Both of those companies liked what's happening on South Broadway, the emergence of the vibe and culture in that area, and they wanted to be part of it. So we're looking forward to working with them. We've hosted many events. This place is really tailor-made to bring in people and hosting large gatherings, and so we've invented a lot of these. The Business Expo, we did Englewood Creates. We actually did that at Black Cube up on the hill this spring, but Job Fair is always popular. In Manufacturer's Edge, we actually did that out in the industrial neighborhoods, and some of you were there for that. You'll be hearing from us in early December about City Center. We did an RFQ and an RFP for developers, so we're actually going to be presenting a recommendation to you on that in early December, so stay tuned. I talked about the DDA formation. We're starting to ramp up the discussions with the property and business owners in the area so they can hear a little bit more about it and hopefully create a kernel of energy among themselves to carry it forward. And then as we're continuing the council endorsed redevelopment action plan, and probably we'll do an update to that and bring that to you in the near future. So 2020 goals, redevelopment of this city center is going to be a very complex but very exciting opportunity for the community. And as I said, you'll be hearing about that in a couple of weeks. I mentioned the online permitting and payment system. We're really excited to work with IT's group and finance to get that going because it'll be a tremendous help to our customers going forward. We're going to be doing, based on your discussions and adoption of the budget, we're going to be taking a look at a comprehensive redo of Title 16, also known as the Unified Development Code, which is everything that guides development in the community. Our plan in 2020 is to start off with a very robust community input discussion around where are we now with our code, what does it look like, this is what's allowed, what is the community's vision for the future, and how could that start to take shape in terms of what we allow to actually be developed. So again, we'll be doing a solicitation for a consultant to help us do some of that community outreach and facilitation. So we're looking forward to starting that early in the year. I've mentioned the light rail corridor study and urban center next step study as well, and the home repair and improvement program. So we've had a very busy year, and we have a busy year in front of us. A couple other things on the economic development side, we want to expand our marketing program. We've had tremendous success with Chris of doing some of that this year. One of the things we want to do is have our clients on the economic development program tell their own story, because they can tell it much more effectively than we can. So we want to expand and do more of that. And I mentioned the DDA, that we're starting with the champion building effort with that. So that's the conclusion of my remarks. What I would just say in closing is that since the Great Recession ended, there's been a lot of change in Englewood. There's been a lot of development, and a lot of that has come to you. You've heard a lot on all kinds of sides from the community about whether the pace of change in Englewood is good, bad, it's the right thing, it's the wrong thing, it's the right place, it's the wrong place. We're here to take that direction from you, and we will continue to do that. But what I would say in terms of closing is it's been a very busy year just from a production standpoint, but you've also wrestled with some very controversial things this year. And I want to thank the 16 other professionals that I work with for their professionalism, their commitment, and their passion for this community. So I just wanted to leave you with that and wish you a good night.
All right, any questions for community development? All right, we are just about at 9 o'clock, and I did want to just give you a preview of what is to come. This was by far your longest night, so you can breathe a sigh of relief for surviving the longest night of the orientation. So at the study session on the 18th, we will pick up the city clerk, Parks, Recreation, Library, HR, and IT. And then on the 24th, we're going to be covering really kind of the utilities, South Platte Water Renewal Partners, Public Works, and also if you'd like, we can have a presentation on courts, if we can talk to the court if that's something that's of interest. And then we are going to be picking up the two divisions that are part of the city manager's office now, which include the new neighborhood resources program as well as the fire marshal's office. So we want to make sure and cover those on the 25th. So I do want to thank a few people. Chris Hargath literally worked nonstop from about noon till right before the meeting, reformatting this to my picky standards in terms of the presentation, and did a great job. Kristen, my office, is really working hard to put together your resource guide. Of course, thank you to Margaret and Sam for their IT help and all of those good things. And the department heads themselves have been very supportive. They didn't even groan when I said of all the stuff that I wanted to make sure that we covered in these presentations, and they all did a great job. And last but not least, thank you to all of you for your participation and listening, and I look forward to our next couple of sessions.